Welcome everyone. We're going to give a few more minutes for people to join us. We are recording this two-day session, so if there's anyone who's objecting to it, maybe if you want to just turn off your camera, that would help out.
Is that better?
And as we wait, if you want to go ahead and just put your camp name in the chat and let us know who's part of the call today. We'd love to see the representation. We know that there's many different people joining us on this beautiful Friday afternoon. Thank you everyone for giving up your Friday afternoon with us. I apologize. I just made the chat available so everyone can publicly. I think it was stuck on just the host, so I apologize. So you may have to redo it if you need to just put where you're coming from. But if you have any questions, feel free to also use the chat for any questions you have for the board. Perfect. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. It is now officially 12:05. Welcome everyone for joining us. This is the International Association of Burn Camps IABC workshop webinar. It's a little sad to be doing this virtually, I think, for all of us, as we should be in beautiful Chicago, enjoying the weather there and participating in a in-person workshop in which we would all be learning from each other and sharing resources. And because we're not doing that, the board felt very passionate about still offering something during this time. Therefore, we have launched this amazing opportunity for us to learn more about the organization, how we've changed in the past year, and to go over a really important piece of information, and that's our strategic plan today. So welcome everyone. My name is Daniel Chacon. I am a part of the Elisa and Roosh Burn Foundation. My camp is Champ Camp, and I am the board chair. I'll turn it over to Mackenzie to introduce herself.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. I am Mackenzie Williams. I am with Camp Uyala, the Georgia Firefighters Burn Foundation out of Atlanta, Georgia. I'm so glad to see all your faces. I wish we were in Chicago together, but this will have to do for now.
And I'll turn it over now to Kristen.
Hello, everyone. It's Kristen Quinn, University of Utah Burn Camp Programs. It's nice to see everybody, and I guess I second Mackenzie and Daniel when I say I really wish we were all together in Chicago, but I appreciate everybody making the efforts to still keep connections and communication and help us stay on track with our board responsibilities of communication too.
Great. And then I'll pass it over to Pat. I'm not sure if he's... maybe Pat won't be able to do audio for right now, but Pat Barton from BC Burn Fund is also on the call with us, a board member. Again, thank you everyone for joining and being a part of today's call. This is being recorded again, so if you do not want your face or audio recorded, if you can just mute yourself or turn off your camera, but we do want to have this available for other members who are unable to join us today. We have about 40 people who registered for today. We're really excited to talk and move forward. Pat, I see your camera on. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, sorry about that. Yeah, it's Pat Burton from Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada. I'm with the BC Burn Fund, and yeah, it's nice to see all you guys, and it's too bad that we couldn't be in Chicago.
Perfect. And Pat, since we have you on the line, I'm going to have you actually introduce our speakers. So the first part of our webinar today will be going over our strategic plan. And this was part of the first initiative when we onboarded our new board members last year or a year and a half that we felt really passionate about, is really learning more who we were as an organization and the future of the International Association of Burn Camps. So I'm going to have Pat Barton introduce our special guests and allow them to do a presentation for us today.
So a little while ago, we had Pat Evans from Canada. She worked on a strategic plan with our organization, and it was very, very well received and helped our organization a lot. So we brought her into the IABC, helps with our little bit of strategic plan and to try and point us in the right direction. And we did that last year, and now we're just trying to implement some of the changes and the programs that she's helped us with. So yeah, I'll leave the floor to Pat, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Pat Barton, and thank you everybody for inviting me to speak with you today. I am going to try and share my screen now. Are you seeing a PowerPoint slide? Excellent. I love it when technology works. Okay, what I'm going to do is just take about 10 minutes to tell you about the strategic planning journey that I've been on with your organization so far. And then I'll leave a few minutes for questions, and ideally you will come away from this with a good understanding of what we have done in the last year around strategic planning for IABC. So by way of introduction, as Pat Barton said, I'm in Canada. I'm a nonprofit planning and governance consultant, and it's been my pleasure to work with Pat's organization for about 10 years now on strategic planning, program planning and evaluation, and governance. And so I have a pretty good understanding of their charity and of the burn camp world. And last year, I had the exciting opportunity to work on a broader scale with IABC to understand about the things that some of you are doing together in this international association. So just to level set for all of us, I understand strategic planning as not that sophisticated a thing, really. It's a process, and it's a process through which ideally a group of people can agree on where they're going together, how they're going to get there, and how they'll know if they got there. So the benefit of it for any organization, although it can be quite a bit of work, it builds a shared vision for the future. It helps you to take advantage of emerging opportunities, helps you to recognize and address if there are threats or opportunities for improvement, to improve efficiency and effectiveness. And most of all, it allows you to have a solid foundation for decision making. In other words, if you have choices to make, as we all do, about what to do, what to spend on, which one of the great big list of priorities comes first, this is a good way to guide that thinking. Unfortunately, strategic planning is a bit like housework. You do it, and after a little while, it just has to be done again. And I like to think of it as a cycle, and this graphic illustrates the cycle. It starts with discovery, the idea of figuring out where we're at right now and what are the things going on in our environment that we need to pay attention to as we plan. Then we go into planning, and that's the process of agreeing on priorities, objectives, the activities that we'll undertake to achieve those objectives that are aligned with the priorities, the timeline and accountabilities, and the measurable outcomes that we will work towards so that we all are on the same page. Next comes performance, and that's really the old, what Captain Picard calls making it so. That's the actual hard work. And that is a smaller cycle. You'll see here that's a little circle within the bigger one, and that really is every year. Every year you should be doing a bunch of stuff, monitoring progress, evaluating how you're doing, and possibly adjusting your plan if things go better or worse than planned to make sure that you're all on the same page. Eventually, you go through several of those years and everything in your strategic plan is either done or you've decided it doesn't matter anymore, or the world has changed and you have other priorities. And when that starts to happen, then it's time for renewal. It's time to start all over again. And that is the strategic planning cycle. And what I'd like to do is tell you a little bit about how I've worked with IABC and where we're at right now. So for discovery, I started out with a briefing from Daniel and Pat and reviewing all your documents, your bylaws, your guidelines, your past goals, even had a quick look at your finances to try and understand where you were at right now. Then we did an online survey and we asked the people that you work with and for where they thought you were at. This was an online survey, anonymous. I wouldn't be surprised if many of the people on the call participated, and all the member organizations were invited to participate. We heard from 31 respondents, and the questions in that survey asked people to tell us about their understanding of the purpose of the organization, how they thought about your past accomplishments and future priorities, their perception of the value of IABC in relation to the cost for the organizations to participate, and how to increase that value for money. The responses that we heard from the 31 people were very consistent. They saw the achievements and importance and value of the organization to be in the areas of education, training, guidance, and guidelines. In other words, all the things that would allow all the member camps to enhance their success and do better. Some things that we also heard was a lot of folks said they didn't know. They didn't know what the value is. They'd like better communication. They'd like to know more about what is available to them. And so there was a big opportunity identified to improve the perceived value of participation. So that was our discovery process. Then last October, almost a year ago, we moved into the planning session. And this was an opportunity to look at the results of the discovery process, to revisit the stated mission and vision of the organization, to have a discussion about what success would look like, what the priorities and objectives needed to be to achieve that success, and then talking about outcomes, measurement, and next steps. And about 5 of us got together after the conference in Anaheim and spent a day talking about those things. Mission and vision, defining success 5 years out, talking about priorities and objectives of how to get to success and how we'd measure that success to know what it looked like. And the summary of all that work was this one-page strategic plan and the larger, more detailed document that is on the website. And I believe Daniel circulated this one-pager that we referred to as the placemat to all of you just before the meeting today, so that you have it for your reference and you don't have to squint at the screen to read all that tiny print. Essentially, the plan identifies the mission at the top, the organization's reason for being, and the vision at the bottom here, the future that you're all working to create. In between, to act on that mission and get closer to the vision, 4 priorities were identified: strengthening the association, championing and amplifying best practices, enhancing member networking and collaboration, and increasing member awareness and engagement. And if you think back to what I just told you about the survey, that really does reflect what we heard from the members. The purpose in terms of education, training, and best practices, guidelines, and obviously that's a big part of that is members working together and collaborating to share that information. Then the issue of communication and higher member awareness and engagement, and strengthening the association in order to deliver all the other three things. So that was published. It went on the website. My understanding is that the board agreed to it and said, yep, that's our plan. But of course, now comes the hard part, and that's performance. That is the piece about making it so. And this is really the challenge, the big challenge for any organization, and particularly one like yours, which is primarily voluntary. And you're not rich, you're not full of full-time staff to whom you can delegate things. And so this is the really hard part. And it's the making it so, monitoring how you're doing, and that year-to-year adjustment about, did we get what we thought we'd get done, completed in this year, or do we have to change? And this challenge of implementation often feels like you're being pulled in all directions. Capacity is the big issue. This year we have the additional challenge of COVID, which complicates absolutely everything. You have conflicting pressures on your time, conflicting commitments. It makes it much harder to collaborate when you can't get together in Chicago and look each other in the eyeballs and say, okay, folks, what are we going to do? And accountability. Accountability is the biggest challenge that you all have here, and it's a mutual thing. You can't just say, oh, Daniel's going to take care of everything, or we've delegated it all to Kristen and she's going to do it all. This really is a question of every single one of us stepping up and saying, okay, I'll do that part. I'll do it by this date. To get it done, I need Mackenzie to help me with that, and I need Tim to help me with this, and I need Hamish to help me with something else. And then really holding each other accountable for doing that. So ultimately, this strategic plan that you have is a living document. It is not etched in stone. It's etched in wet sand, and sometimes, like with the COVID pandemic, the tide comes in and washes away all your best intentions and you have to regroup. But if it works, it provides a clear and common direction and really reinforces your work as a unified team. Ideally, for an organization like IABC, it really should enhance your work together as a unified team so that you're all on the same page and you have that clarity about where you're going and what success looks like. And it enhances the success, therefore, of the member organizations, because if this association is successful, then ideally each of you is more successful, and that means you're able to do more for the survivors and the families that you serve, and it's a guideline for your success. So I'm going to stop talking now, and I would welcome any questions or comments that anybody has, particularly from those of you who were there in the room with me in Anaheim, and what you had to say about this.
Pat, thanks so much for your summary. You spoke so much more eloquently than I could have in terms of really summarizing an entire day's worth of work last fall. So I appreciate that a lot. I think that we really tried to listen to what the membership said about wanting more engagement and wanting educational opportunities. And I'd be really interested in just kind of hearing feedback of, did you guys notice a pivot in like this, that engagement, or are you still looking for more engagement? I think that's the area that we've really focused our attention, and I would love to know where we are with that. That it would be great feedback.
And if you're unable to unmute yourself, please just raise your hand and we're happy to unmute you so you can participate in the conversation.
I'm seeing that Madeline found the check-ins in the spring and summer is awesome. Madeline, can you say a bit more about that, what the value of that was?
Well, I, being a new member to the IABC, had not really had a lot of contact with the organization. And then in a brand new role as a camp director, and then having to go through COVID was really helpful to connect with other burn camps. I can't compare it to what the level of connection was before the strategic plan. But I just really looked forward to that every week, just to get some ideas and some connection.
I'll add to that. Number one, it's cathartic to see your friends and your colleagues from across the country. That in itself, even if there's no means to an end, is wonderful. I think that's why we enjoy what we do, and why this community is unique in that capacity, just because the fellowship and the networking, you know, we're all in a very powerful industry where we can not just influence, but it has potential life-changing impact with some of our kids that we serve, and sharing those stories is valuable. I think beyond that, I think we hit on something. We've heard often with COVID, you know, if we get this out of COVID, then this is a good thing. I think for the IABC, there's value in these kind of connectivity, even with swapping some of the things that we did with our virtual camps or beyond. Like we're doing something in October that was really, I'll just flat out say, we borrowed or stole it from Wisconsin. We're getting apparatus to deliver pumpkins and pumpkin carving kits and candy for Halloween. And when I say we stole it, they, I think, had apparatus deliver boxes. I see Melissa shaking her head yes for their camp. I thought, oh, that's a great idea, but we already had camp. How can we do something like that? And we would never have garnered that if we wouldn't have been in a COVID year, likely, even though we do kind of talk. We have some collaborative programs anyway. So I like the opportunity to have check-ins where we can, I think I know my colleagues well enough. None of it's like a humble brag, like, look what we're doing. It's like, man, I'm gonna steal that. And then I'm gonna give you maybe something good that we've thought of too, and just kind of, you know, we're not competing for like Kmart and Walmart. It's not about widgets and profits. It's about impact and changing lives. And so needless to say, like Madeline said with the spring check-ins, I think it was not only value in a COVID year, but I think it draws inspiration, and we need that. Even though with what we're doing is currently good, how can we get excited about something new? So I like that. I hope it continues.
Mackenzie, I'm going to pick on you. I recall at the workshop that you were both excited and feeling a bit overwhelmed in terms of how much work there was anticipated in this plan and how few people there were to do it and how little time they had to do it. And I'd like to encourage you to speak to that and talk about what it feels like as a board member to you know, develop a plan like this and then sit and look at it and go, holy crap, now what do we do?
Yeah, thank you, Pat. It's so good to see you. I feel like it's been forever and yesterday since I saw you. I appreciate you nicely putting that, because I, as a new member to the board, we have quite a few new members when we signed on to this, and Pat Barton really pushed us to do the strategic plan as we all sat at the conference a couple years ago and kind of looked at each other and we're like, okay, we've been passed the torch. Now what are we going to do? So we really spent a lot of time looking at who we are, who everyone thinks the IABC, and what it is that we wanted. Did have some spirited discussion, and I think it could have been the pregnancy hormones, but also could have just been the honest truth was we looked at all the work that the IABC says it does and wants to do, and it was so overwhelming as a volunteer organization. And everybody here either volunteers or, you know, works full-time and also works with their camp. So just to try to take that on was very overwhelming. And I think what we found, what I personally, and I think we've all talked about since then, we found so powerful was going through the process to really figure out, okay, what is it that we really want to do and need to do, and what are those things we want to put off till 5 years from now? Do we really need to think about that? A volunteer organization really can't take these things. So I think for us, for me personally, by the end of it, I was exhausted, so felt so accomplished. I wish that, I know we took pictures, but I wish we could have taken more pictures of the amount of sticky notes that were covered inside that hotel conference room, because we really did some serious work on the behalf of our member camps, and really took, like Kristen said and Pat said, we took those surveys to heart, and that really was what drove us and what we used as kind of our compass. So I'm so grateful we did this. I think that we should put it in that every new board should probably go through a strategic plan to really deep dive into what the organization does. And so I think that it's informed what we've done this year. Thinking about what you said, Pat, there's some, after revisiting that, there's some things we haven't gotten to yet, but that's okay because we talked about that. So for me personally, yeah, it was really helpful. And I think for the organization, it's definitely made a huge difference in the work that we're doing.
I'm really glad to hear that, Mackenzie, and I don't want you guys to beat yourselves up. The association is small but mighty, and certainly has very high aspirations, and that's a wonderful thing. Your vision should always exceed your immediate grasp, otherwise you haven't set it high enough. That being said, you also don't want to bury yourself in the feeling of, oh God, we haven't done anything. So it's super important to revisit the plan every year and say, is this still realistic? Given the way the world has changed, what are our priorities right now? Have they shifted? Is there some stuff we want to put off even further? Do we need to shift anything else? And at this point, I think, unless you have any other questions of me, what I'd like to do is leave you to it and just say, you know, I feel like I've launched this ship, and now it's up to you to sail her.
Well, thank you so much, Pat Evans, for your work. It has been amazing, and I can speak on for myself and the rest of the board to say we are very grateful for this process and having someone who we did this whole process within a series of a day. So it was a huge feat, and thank you for being a part of our call and describing this. I did put the full report for the strategic plan link from the website into the chat. So if you want to know more about it, please go ahead and read that at a later time. Again, thank you, Pat Evans, for joining us today, and it was a pleasure having you. At this time, we'll go into our next session, which we will be describing some of the work that we talked about during the strategic plan, and we'll have Kristen talk about next steps in terms of some of the desired committees and subcommittees that we want to form.
So part of the strategic plan was to look at creating 3 separate subcommittees, one based on research, one based on the education workshop and trying to pull together more people from the membership to step up to help plan the workshop, and then a 3rd committee to look at really how do we engage the membership. And really engaging the membership has been sort of a thread throughout the whole strategic plan. And I think if I were to say one kind of bright spot that came out of COVID, it would definitely be the ability and the impetus to kind of create these Zoom conversations. And it has been really just heartening to see the membership getting more and more engaged and communicating with each other. And like Mark said, sharing ideas has been really exciting. So I think we are looking at what are other ways that we can do that without necessarily creating another committee, just because we're trying to be realistic about what can we do in the face of, you know, COVID changed. There's probably nothing in our lives that COVID hasn't impacted in some way, shape, or form. So how do we build on that in a positive way, but also, like Pat said, create realistic expectations for ourselves as board members and as IABC members in general. We're hoping that we're going to send out a survey that we'll get an idea of how often do people want to stay engaged via Zoom. Daniel's already got our next month kind of agenda set up, and what will that look like moving forward into the future. and looking for folks who would be interested in joining the education workshop subcommittee. I think the research subcommittee, we're going to kind of put a pin in until at least the workshop, just kind of knowing there is a finite kind of amount of time and resources that we have to work on things. Oh, another engagement opportunity that we've been brainstorming is, and Lori Janik from Arizona, I don't see, oh, there's Lori. So we talked about, you know, those touch points that we want to have throughout the year with campers, and that idea that creating this virtual programming, I think on the front end took more time than creating in-person camp, because we've all got these systems in place for in-person camp and it just kind of flows. And doing this virtual programming really took a lot of time. So what if we had everybody send a link to a video that they created or two to the IABC Gmail account, and we will then create a tab on the IABC website that is kind of camp, you know, camp around the country. And it would be a way that we could actually get our families to connect on a broader scale of what, you know, we're in Utah, but what's the camp in Georgia doing? What are kids in California thinking about being burn survivors? What are they working on? And so we're thinking if we could all share a couple of our videos or activities, it would be a way that we would then all have some programming that we could send out to our campers and our families, mid-year, so that we have those touch points. It would also be a way for our campers and families to kind of have that sense of, oh, the world isn't quite as small as it feels right now. There's this whole broader group of people around the US and Canada who can kind of relate to our experience. So what do people think about that?
See a lot of heads nodding and thumbs up, Kristen.
So would people be willing to send just to the IABC Gmail account? Would people be able to send the links for a couple of their videos that they created? Just like two a camp, if you're willing. I think it would be a really nice resource for us to all kind of utilize for our camps. And Danielle, Mackenzie, I feel like we set a deadline for that. Was that by November? Did we decide?
As soon as people can send them. I don't know if we had a hard deadline on that. I just put our email or Google account on that. So it's the IABC iaburnCamps@gmail.com. We also have a Google Drive. So if the file is too big, we prefer you to send the link because we'll be adding them onto the website through YouTube or Vimeo or whatever you use for your video service. But I think no later by the end of this year, hopefully we can get that up and ready for 2021 at the latest, but as soon as you can. And I think, Kristen, we said 2 videos per camp. If
yeah, just to make sure we kind of aren't too inundated, but also that every camp has the opportunity to be represented. The other piece, oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, did you want me to also launch that poll for that Friday night chat or the Friday chat sessions?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we were going to continue with chats, here's some thoughts and questions that we have about what that could look like. We can just do that live right now.
Can I ask a quick question? Yes, okay. Like one of the pieces of content that I think I'd be really interested in, and again, maybe you've been doing it. I was really active on being in this chats for a while, and then eventually it hit a wall, right? For me personally, I don't know if other people kind of felt the same way. I'd love to have like a very robust debrief on what everybody's virtual. You might be getting to that, right? I'm sorry. Okay, I'll just stop.
You feel like our great, and I wish that we could have take credit for for paying you off to do that for us.
It's coming. It's coming. We'll be talking about that
I'll
later.
hang up and listen then.
And I think we can go ahead and move forward. We have 21 out of 23 people who are on the call, and some of you are calling in. So I think we're good with that. So we'll definitely circle back with you with the results and more information when we're done with today.
I think my other responsibility on the board is to just give you all an update on our finances. Prior to the workshop that was supposed to happen this fall, well, right now, we were the recipient of a $5,000 grant from the American Burn Association to help support the workshop. And so we still do have that workshop, and the ABA has agreed to let us put that towards the workshop that will be happening hopefully next fall. Dottie's like, oh yeah, it's happening. And yeah, so that is the plan, and the ABA has graciously allowed us to just use that money towards the following workshop. And so our only expense so far this year has just been our professional Zoom account. And otherwise, since January, we have really spent, what was that, $170, Daniel, for the Zoom account? So in our checking account, we have $14,916, and in our savings account, we have $7,100. So we're being very judicious and careful with our money, knowing that we're going to want to have as much as possible to put forward for the workshop next year to help keep costs down for everybody participating. Our typical other expenses include we have to pay a small fee for the website every year, and we feel like there's one other small expense we have on a yearly basis.
The membership application service.
Yes. And speaking of that.
Yeah. Speaking of membership, I think that's where we're turning to you, right?
Me or Mackenzie? Me?
I'm not sure. We decided, sorry.
Okay, so I'll talk about membership.
Really hard, obviously.
Yeah. So membership information will be coming out really soon. And then yeah, the applications will be up in November. We would really like to have the full membership list up and running by January. So if you guys could, as soon as you get that email about membership, please just fill out the form, submit it. That's a great time to update contact information. That's a great, time to update if there's a new email address for your camp programming, or if you've added or subtracted a program. I would really encourage everybody, if you're running multiple programs, to list all of your programs out. I think that really helps if families are searching for programming. It helps families know what's out there in their area. And we would really like to have all that finalized by January. And that, as the treasurer, that makes it a lot easier for me. So thank you for doing that.
Great. Thank you so much, Kristen, for all those great updates and announcements. Now we'll go to Mackenzie, who will share a little about communication and then about our upcoming board election process.
Yes, thank you, Daniel. So we've talked to, you guys have heard a lot about the strategic plan. And so one of the things we wanted to try to work on, especially when everything happened with COVID, was really communication. In the chat, our Facebook, our YouTube channel, and then Daniel also put that link to sign up for our email list as well. So for us, we really just have been focusing on how can we communicate best with our member camps. And so one of the ways we've been trying to do that is through Facebook, as well as through email. So if you don't, this is a shameless plug to please go on and like our Facebook page. We don't post a ton, but one of the things we focus on is not only highlighting what we're doing, but really sharing helpful articles and resources for camps. So we email those between ourselves, but also if you have anything that you're working on as a camp, or any emails or any resources that you found that are helpful, please email them to us and we'll put them on our Facebook, and we can also share them on our website as well. We're working on kind of a new resource section to try to help camps. So if you'll go to our Facebook, you'll see that there is an event, drum roll, for what Coop was alluding to, which will be our next monthly chat. So you can go on there. There's the registration for Eventbrite there already, and you can see the time and the dates, October 16th at 12 Pacific, 3 Eastern, and fill in the rest of yours, of your time zone. So yeah, that's just one of the things that we have been able to do and are continuing to work on. The same thing with our YouTube channel. We're hoping to create a playlist for all those videos that you're going to send us of yours as well. And we just want to try to find as many ways as we can communicate with everybody. And then if you guys have any ideas or feedback about communication, please send them to us. This is your organization. We are representatives of you, but this is really your organization. We love feedback and appreciate that so much. So thank you for liking our Facebook and getting us, you know, maybe one day we'll be verified. I doubt it, but we can dream, right? So thank you for that. And don't forget to share that too with any of your camp staff. I think we always, as kind of leaders, we forget that our camp staff like to see that stuff too. So feel free to suggest that they like us on Facebook as well. Moving on to elections, everybody's favorite topic. We have a couple of board positions that are open, and so we're working on getting the election process ready. We are gonna have nominations, the form ready for nominations on October 1st. That's our goal. And then by November 1st, we're gonna start the voting process with the hope of presenting the new board members on December 1st and really trying to get them onboarded to kick off January. So if you're interested or you know anybody who's interested, go ahead and kind of start thinking about that. We are, as Pat said, a small but mighty team, and I'd like to think we have a lot of fun. I wasn't planning on doing a sales pitch, but maybe I should. I think that if it's something that you've been thinking about, we really love to have you join us. There's a lot of different roles that people play, and if you're passionate about one of the areas that you see on, especially looking at the strategic plan, we would love to have you join the board and represent your organization. If you have questions about that, let us know. But like I said, we'll be sending those emails out shortly to get everybody on that process. Any questions?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mackenzie. Our information, we'll send it in the chat in a second, just where you can find any of the board members' emails. We are all open to having conversations with you if you're interested in the board position, as we all are currently serving right now. And we can tell you the honest truth on what you're getting yourself into. It is a 4-year commitment. It is 1 burn camp per spot. So you can't have more than 2 people from your camp be on the board. And it's a great opportunity to really serve the community that we're a part of. And we're really excited about the future and where we're going. We are down some board members today on the call, and I do want to say that JD, our good friend, unfortunately was not able to be here today, and we're sending her lots of love and wishes today. So she did want to send her apologies and say that she was not able to make it. But we're going to wrap up now and just give a share out with our a year in review and what we've actually been able to focus on this past year. A lot has happened. In addition to the strategic plan that we worked on, I do want there to be some full transparency in it. We did pay for that service, and as a board, we decided that was going to be something that we wanted to invest in. So that was an awesome feat for us. That was less than a year ago. Since then, we've been able to conduct the COVID response webinars that have now transitioned to our discussion groups through Zoom. I want to be very honest and transparent and give a lot of you guys kudos for participating in that. Burn camps were some of the first camps in the world that responded to actively seeking out resources and moving towards a virtual camp process more than any other specialty camp that I've come across within the ACA community. Actually, we were approached by an organization recently who were wanting to know what burn camps did, because literally shelter in place happened, at least here in California, in early mid-March, and within a 3-week turnaround, the board moved forward and launched our first ever Zoom discussion, which we had never done before. We had to purchase a Zoom account. It was a new thing for us, and we acted fast. And as a result, I think we all resource shared. We created a Google Drive that has been an opportunity. So if you haven't uploaded some of your documents that you want to share, we'll go ahead and link that also in the chat where you can upload those documents. But it was a huge effort and a huge a rise up of our community really acting fast to make sure that our burn survivors got the support they needed this year and that we didn't leave them alone. In addition to that, we participated in the American Burn Association's Special Interest Group workshop virtually. That was another commitment that we committed to do, and our part as IABC wanting to make sure that we stuck to keeping our information out there and making sure that that was available to our membership and then to the broader burn community. In addition to that, this past year has been a year of strengthening our community partnerships. And we say that in a lot of ways. I see Carrie on the line, and we want to thank you, Carrie, for last year, your works in helping us strengthen that relationship with the Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors and being able to do our first ever booth at World Burn Congress. That was a huge opportunity for us, and we were able to talk to lots of families about the importance and the benefits of Burn Camp. In addition to that, we've had several meetings since then with the Phoenix Society talking about ways in which we can collaborate. And we were able, some of us were able to partake in a resource sharing for teens and how to do remote programming. In addition to that, we've been meeting, and as Kristen said, with the American Burn Association, and we got a very generous donation from them of $5,000 for our workshop that is going on, which had never in my history of learning the organization, we had actually received anything from that. And we really want to thank Kim and ABA for their continued support of us as an organization. In addition to all those things, this has been a very, I think, eventful year for us. Many organizations, I think, are slowing down. I feel IABC is ramping up, and we're really pushing forth to make sure that you guys are supported. Mackenzie gave a great feedback of what we've done on social media, and that was a new effort of focus for us too, of making sure that we had transparency and communication per our strategic plan. In addition to that, it was we're working on enhancements to our website. So you can go to our website and see all of our meeting agendas and our meeting notes. So if you're ever curious on what we're discussing as part of the board, we meet monthly and we have discussions on what's going on. In addition to that, we created a new section tab, is that we want to really not only be a resource for camp directors and program leads from each organization, we want to be a resource for all of your camp staff. So part of doing that was creating a tab in which members can sign up to get emails about events and about our programs and our resources. So if you don't get our emails, or if you want to get your whole staff plugged in, please send them to our website. They can fill out that information and they'll be a part of our email list after that part. Kristen mentioned what we'll be doing next in terms of collecting some of those videos. That is going to be showcased on our website as well as our social media. We want to highlight the good work that you are all doing in our community. And then in addition to that, we're moving forward with our workshop. I want to thank Chris and Dottie, and I see Dottie and I thought I saw Chris a second ago, our friends from Chicago. They were our hosts this year. It was a really hard year. And again, the board acted really fast in making sure that we didn't lose out in terms of money or in terms of time. And I really want to thank the shark Dottie, because she made sure that that hotel didn't penalize us for canceling our reservation. And that was a huge concern for us because we were potentially going to be losing out in, I think it was 30% of our total cost, which was going to be thousands of dollars that the IABC would have had to have absorbed. So thank you, Dottie and the Illinois Fire Safety Alliance for the work that you've done and being our host again for next year. So please mark your calendars. We are excited and we'll have the new dates on our website very soon. And then the last thing that we've been doing and moving forward right now is what Mackenzie mentioned and what Mark nicely set us up for is our last webinar of the year, and that's going to be on the Burn Camp virtual debrief. We've all did some awesome work. It was a crazy year for a lot of us, but we want to hear your stories. And not only will we be doing a debrief, we've also created a virtual post-burn camp survey in which we want to capture all the things that we have done through virtual burn camp. So I'm going to go ahead and post it now. It is a Google form. It will take you a few minutes. Even if you didn't do virtual burn camp, we ask that you fill it out. We're trying to track how many camps did burn camp in person, how many of them did it virtual. It's a 5-minute survey. We promise it's completely anonymous if you want, but we're trying to capture this information. Our goal with this was actually a result of Trudy out of Colorado, who said, we really need to be capturing these stories and we need to capture. So we worked really hard on creating a survey that would hopefully capture all this. Our goal with this is to utilize this information and potentially present what burn camps did in the year 2020 at the American Camp Association on the national conference in the future years, as well as the American Burn Association. We're curious to see what the data will show. We're curious to see how we can utilize this and potentially learn. Although we are at the end of, or on the latter half of the year, who knows what 2020 is going to hold, and who knows if we may have to do virtual camps again. And I hope that we are prepared and that we've learned our mistakes. I see you, Melissa. I hope that's not the case too, but we don't know. And that's yeah, fingers crossed. That's the direction we want to be going, and we want to be able to support you guys in the work that we're doing. So we really hope that we can learn from what we've done in the past. That is the end of our announcements. That's the end of our presentation today. We're at 12:54. I love being in that time frame of an hour. I hate when things go over, but we did want to open up to membership of any questions you have for the board, anything that you want to discuss. Madeline, I see your question, and I'm going to go ahead and just put the flyer, but the date is October the 16th. There we go, Mackenzie. And I'll put the link for the Eventbrite. That was another addition that we did, was create an Eventbrite for you guys. So hopefully that's been an easier process for everyone. But any questions for the board or any comments anyone wants to say before we close up today's webinar?
I have a comment, of course. There are only 343 days till the workshop, so.
Thanks, Dottie. We're really excited.
Dottie, did you order good weather for Chicago? It's beautiful right around here today.
Yeah, well, fingers are crossed is all I can say. And
Dottie,
toes.
do you want to remind everybody of the specific dates for the 2021 workshop?
Sure, they're August 27, 28, 29, and 30 of 2021.
There was a lot of kind of jumping around on dates and trying to work around camps and, you know, that possible world burn dates and the IAFF camp dates and fall, and we're on an off year, and so we hope those dates work for everyone. Oh, and then we also had to work with the hotel conference center resort that Dottie has gotten set up for us on. So it's a little earlier than usual, which will probably be absolutely beautiful in Chicago at that time.
Can I make a real quick plug, something that we could really use help from this community for, and something that ultimately might be huge for the IABC as well? With that teaser, you gotta say yes, right? I mean, that's just, so we're in the midst of this challenge with the Breeders' Crown. If you're not familiar with horse racing, and I'm not a big horse racing guy, but the Breeders' Cup is like you would envision traditional horse racing. The Breeders' Crown is harness racing. And so I'll kind of get to the point, so in case there's other discussion. So Abby's gonna attach a link where you can vote. If you could get any of your networks to basically promote a vote for us. If we win this challenge, and I'm kind of prognosticating on last year's numbers, but it could be like $100,000, like big money. So if we were to win this challenge and you guys support that, Hoosier Burn Camp will subsidize the food at the IABA, all these are acronyms, conference. So we will be the donor for the snacks. Now, that doesn't mean we have to, I know what the budget for that has been in the
I
past.
thought you were going to provide the food for the workshop.
Yeah, hello.
I can do, no, the workshop's a whole different ballgame. There's a budget I will work with. But that would be huge for us. Now, where this also is beneficial for our IABC is I've developed a pretty, I don't want to be hyperbolic here, I will say casually strong relationship with Caesar's Palace. And so when things are in Vegas, I might be able to get them to do even more than what they've done in the past. And this Breeders' Crown that takes place, it's going to alternate to different states. I might be able to define a path, and I can't make any promises here, but I'm just kind of leading towards what I'm hoping. If I continue on this arc and this relationship, if the Breeders' Crown is in a different part of the country or in Canada, I might be able to convince them to get your respective camp or IBC as one of the partners, because they choose 4 different entities. And the payout normally is, the top prize is $100,000. I think second is 50,000, third is 15, and fourth is 10. It doesn't cost anything to vote. You know, we've seen polls in the past where if you vote, it costs you $1 or whatever like that. This is all being subsidized by casino money and corporate interests, horse owners, that kind of stuff. So I'll work on that. My angle right now for this year is they're pleased with us. We seem to be on their radar in a positive connotation. So if our organization can win this challenge this year, I'm going to use that to parlay into something that might be IABC centric, or like, again, if it's like in Colorado or Illinois or somewhere else where I can see if I can parlay that into benefiting your individual camp too. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I did just link our board information, so if you're interested in joining the board or talking to any of us, or if you just want to ask us a question about anything we discussed today, we will be uploading this presentation also on our YouTube account, and then link it onto our website and send it out to membership. So in case you have any camp staff that want to watch it later, they can. Going once, going twice, sold. 1 o'clock. All right, guys, we appreciate all of you, a part of the IABC. Have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy. If there's anything you need, just give us a shout.
Thank you, everybody. It's so good to see y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone.